Planes, man. Well, in a highly disappointing Italian Grand Prix for Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton took victory and extended his championship advantage to Sebastian Vettel by 30 points. We'll have a look at what happened, why it happened, and what it means for the championship and the overall picture. Join me for analysis and review of the Italian Grand Prix. Oh, before we got to do all this plugging first, so let's try and get it out of the way as quickly as possible. If you are new, please subscribe. If you like the content, please like the video, and if you have any thoughts, comment them down below. My social medias are all in the description. That's enough, let's get into the video. So probably the best Italian Grand Prix for many a year saw Ferrari lock out the front row. Kimi Räikkönen setting the fastest lap of all time in Formula 1 history, passing Juan Pablo Montoya's record of 162 miles an hour by posting an average speed of 163 miles an hour, 163.9 or something miles an hour through the forests of Monza. An incredible lap, his first pole position since Monaco last year, and he was followed very closely by Sebastian Vettel and Hamilton and Bottas on the second row. However, Vettel wasn't happy with the Ferrari strategy. It wasn't because of the fact that he was towing Raikkonen. He had no problem with that. It was because Ferrari sent him out at the wrong time, so he couldn't get the tow from Hamilton, which probably would have put him ahead of Raikkonen, given the difference between them was less than a tenth. That was the catalyst for the "We'll speak later" team radio message that he gave out after qualifying when they told that he was P2. And then on to the race recap. The start was crucial. Raikkonen cut across Vettel very aggressively from the start. That allowed Hamilton to get a double slipstream going into turn 1. He couldn't take advantage of it. Raikkonen locked up, slightly damaged his tyres going into the first chicane. Vettel took second, and Vettel held second rather. Hamilton held third, and behind them Verstappen passed Bottas for fourth in a move that would actually see him stay there for the majority of the race. But the main action happened at turn 4 on the first lap. Vettel tried to attack Raikkonen on the inside. He left the door slightly open for Hamilton on the outside, and of course Lewis Hamilton, being Lewis Hamilton, took that chance, went round the outside at the Variante della Roggia, and they made contact. Vettel spun round, fell to the back, had some front wing damage, and he also reported a bit more damage throughout the race as he was unhappy with the balance of his car despite a brilliant comeback drive. The point is, it shouldn't have been a comeback drive. We'll discuss that later. Back to the race recap. He had to pit for soft tyres, which he couldn't take to the end because of the damage he did to them in dirty air, trying to make his way back through the field from around 18th or 19th. All the chaos brought out the safety car for 3 laps. There was damage from Vettel's car, the debris from his front wing, and also Brendan Hartley was involved in a shunt with Stoffel Van Dorn where his right front was punctured, and because he was going at full speed, it just ripped the suspension to shreds, and that was the end of his race. Of course, Big Brendan with no luck as usual. At the restart, Hamilton got the perfect tow on Raikkonen, who was a little bit hesitant when he decided to go. He then slowed down again. You got to commit to it, and Hamilton passed him into turn 1. It didn't last long. There's just a few corners later where his teammate Vettel faltered. Raikkonen got passed around the outside of Hamilton. And that was pretty much it for the action at the front until lap 21 when Raikkonen pitted for soft tyres. Hamilton continued. He set some blistering laps until about 8 laps later when he came in for a set of soft tyres of his own. He rejoined in third behind Bottas, who is now leading, and Raikkonen, who was attacking Bottas. Raikkonen had started to bring the gap down ever so slightly to Hamilton, to around 22.5 seconds at his pit stop, which made the difference. It got him out about 5 seconds ahead. However, he took too much out of his tyres, and then he kept on doing it. Instead of sitting back and waiting for them to cool down, he kept on attacking Bottas, and that cost him, as Hamilton managed to get past after the Finn pitted on lap 45, although that wasn't before Bottas had a nasty little skirmish with Verstappen, which I'll talk about later. With Raikkonen nursing his tyres, that left Hamilton unchallenged to take another win in 2018. This means that he holds a 30-point gap to Vettel. This time last year, it was 3 points going into the Asian leg again in Hamilton's favour after winning the Italian Grand Prix. Is it game over for Vettel? Is it game over for Ferrari? There's still 7 rounds to go, but can they make up the deficit, particularly in the Drivers' Championship, with the Constructors' Championship changing race by race? The final race order saw Hamilton finish first from Raikkonen and Bottas. Vettel was elevated to 4th after Verstappen got a 5-second time penalty for his accident with Bottas, so he slumped to 5th. Ocon got 6th, Perez 7th, Sainz 8th, and Stroll and Sirotkin marking a double points finish for Williams in 9th and 10th. Sirotkin getting his first World Drivers' Championship point. Congratulations, Sergey. Romain Grosjean did finish 6th, however he was excluded from the final classification for having an illegal flaw. And that's the first thing that we're going to talk about in the analysis, Haas knew that this flaw was illegal, and it's actually ended up costing them overtaking Renault for 4th in the Constructors' Championship. They knew that the part was illegal when they came to Belgium. However, they asked for special dispensation by the FIA to extend that sort of timeline to Singapore, where they hope to change the course. We've got a 2-week break now between Italy and Singapore. The FIA said that was fine. However, if a team challenged Haas, then they would be subject to a post-race investigation. It was the first serious post-race investigation since 2012, when Lotus, coincidentally, complained about Mercedes' double DRS usage. And we haven't really we've seen threats like Ferrari with the double battery, but we haven't actually seen any of them carried through. So the reason why Haas were disqualified, or Grosjean, because he had the flaw in question, is because the radius of the curve of the flaw did not meet FIA regulations. Article 37.1 of the technical regulations state that the surface formed by all parts lying on the reference plane must have a 50mm radius, give or take 2mm, on each front corner when being viewed directly beneath the car. This being applied after the surface has been defined. It wasn't fitting within the regulations. They did bring the update for Canada. I'll put a picture of it on screen now, the difference between Monaco and Canada, the way it fits into the barge board and everything else, the aerodynamic appendices there. And it was the difference that made... It would really help if I could get my words out, but never mind. And now with that out of the way, let's focus on Ferrari and how I feel that they threw away the Italian Grand Prix in spectacular fashion with a number of mistakes.
Ooh, you're hard.
So they had the perfect chance to win their first home Grand Prix since Fernando Alonso in 2010, but they all started with throwing it away from the start. As I mentioned, Raikkonen cutting across Vettel at the start, that allowed Hamilton to get a double slipstream down into turn 1. It may be a bit of revenge for China, where Vettel blocked Raikkonen from the start and he ended up losing a place for Bottas. You won't see that done at Mercedes, because when they get a 1-2, they plan the start meticulously to make sure that whoever's in second has a slipstream and the person in first is safe from attack. And then onto another lap 1 mishap. Vettel trying to win it from the start again, just like Singapore last year, and that worked out really well for him. He tried to attack his teammate and left that line completely open for Hamilton, and he took it and then paid the price for it. People said that, well, the Italian crowd obviously thought it was Hamilton's fault because they hate him. However, the stewards deemed it a racing incident, and it does look like the fault was on Vettel. Why did he go in so deep?
Not sexual.
Why did he continue to commit to the corner the way he did when he saw that Hamilton was coming up alongside him? It's a bit brain dead. It's a bit like Hamilton when he tried to attack Massa at that very corner in 2010, knocked off his wheel and ended his championship credential. He lost 17 points roughly that day. The gap to Vettel at the end of the championship, 14 points. Maybe Vettel felt obliged to get past Raikkonen because Kimi qualified on pole. Team orders were not existent in Italy. They have allowed Raikkonen to race when he's on pole, but other than that, he does have to make way for Vettel because of the championship challenge. That's why he was so annoyed in Monaco 2017, because poor strategy when he qualified on pole cost him the race victory. Who inherited it? Sebastian Vettel. Nico Rosberg said that stupid mistakes from Vettel is why he's missing out on World Championships. He drove brilliantly last year, but again lost his head a bit in Azerbaijan and Singapore. Okay, he had some poor technical luck towards the end of the Asian leg in Japan as well, so that you can argue that two ways last year, but this year he is making silly mistakes, going for that lunge in Azerbaijan for the lead, and then there's this. Also, post-edit me here, I forgot France as well. And ultimately, you got to think, is it the pressure of trying to emulate his idol Michael Schumacher by winning a world championship for a Ferrari, ending a drought of 10 years now without a Constructors' Championship and 11 years without a Drivers' Championship? Of course, that can all change. There's still plenty of racing to do. Or is it the fact that he's trying to carry the team so much, or having to carry the team so much, he's really starting to feel the pressure in this late season? When he was at Red Bull, Christian Horner said all he had to worry about was driving. However, Ferrari, he's almost got to carry the team through the weekend. And that is why 10 years ago, Ferrari probably would have won this race, but now, I don't know. But it's not all attached on Vettel. He drove fantastically well to get back to 5th or 4th by the time the final classification came through. It's more to do with the fact that Raikkonen took too much out of his tyres on heavy fuel. Don't forget, he was only probably sitting around 65-60 kilograms of fuel at the time of his stop, and he kept on pushing on those soft compound tyres. He had to do so he made sure that he got out ahead of Hamilton, who was putting in some fastest laps even on old super softs, but he just took too much life out of them after the push to get ahead of Hamilton. He was stupid for a man of 17 years experience. He fell into the trap set by Mercedes. He stayed behind Bottas even though he tried to attack. He could have just been cautious. The Ferrari is very good in dirty air. Of course, that is not so applicable in Monza because the downforce is so little that you can make up time on the straights with a slipstream the time you lose in the corners. And when Hamilton came to attack and saw that his tyres were blistered, that was game over. We saw a brilliant drive from Lewis Hamilton. We do have to give credit for him. It was old school Hamilton attacking lap after lap after lap, although he did show his mature side when he was camped behind Raikkonen. He didn't do anything rash, he just sat behind, he cooled his tyres down, then went again, and ultimately it was too much for the Finn. Raikkonen had to back off towards the end because otherwise he may have faced a situation like Europe 2005 where his tyre could have exploded on him on the last lap and he'd have lost everything. Luckily he had the gap to Max Verstappen to do so without losing his second place, and I guess he can be happy with second place in Italy, but there's massive disappointment there. Next up we'll move on to Mad Max Verstappen, and Max, well, some of us love you dearly, however you do make it very, very hard to defend yourself sometimes. And very hard was his defence on Valtteri Bottas. That was a beautiful segue there. He moved across under braking into the first chicane and clipped Bottas's right rear. It could have been an absolutely horrible crash. Luckily Bottas just took to the escape road and carried on. But Verstappen faced a 5-second penalty, which of course he didn't like, and he complained about it on the radio, saying that it's and that the stewards are killing racing with decisions like that. Not really true when you've almost killed Bottas yourself by doing that. The stewards aren't killing racing by penalising moving under braking. In fact, that's what the Verstappen rule was after Spa 2016, to stop drivers from doing that all the time. So just wise up.
Stop it. Get some help.
And finally, I did touch on it earlier, we must congratulate Williams, their first points of the season since Azerbaijan. Stroll got in the points outright with 10th. He got into Q3 as well for the first time this season. A fantastic performance by him, proving some doubters wrong. Will he be in a Force India this time in Singapore? I don't know. It's going to be a little bit quiet. It's a nervy couple of weeks for Esteban Ocon in particular. But Stroll did well, Sirotkin did very well. He stuck on Stroll's tail and he ended up getting his first point. That's Williams' first double points finish since Malaysia. And they've had a disastrous season, however, where you don't need any aerodynamic performance whatsoever. They were always going to be better, but I don't think I expected them to be this good. And that's everything for the video. I hope you did enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments on the race, please do leave them down below. If you're new, please subscribe, and if you like the video, then please like it. But I've been James Eagles. I'll see you for the next one. Take care.